Welcome to the SowGrow Marketing Council podcast. The SowGrow Marketing Council is a membership organization comprised of growing marketers who want to stay ahead of developments in multiple areas of marketing. This podcast features recordings of SowGrow Marketing Council meetings. Tune in to hear expert marketers share tips and discuss the latest strategies and tools in marketing. To join the next meeting and be part of the discussion yourself, visit SowGrowPR.com. That's SowGrowPR.com and click on the Marketing Council tab. Let's get growing. Welcome to the SowGrow Marketing Council. I am so excited to have a wonderful lineup of marketers for you guys today. We're going to have several different marketers present tips on what is going on in their particular area of marketing, so that we can all learn and stay up to speed on what is happening in all these different areas of marketing that change so quickly. So this is not like a typical webinar where you log on and you listen to a presenter and then you send email while they're speaking. This is a participatory meeting. And so we're going to have someone present a tip and they'll have about 4 minutes. And then we'll have just a couple minutes after each presenter to have a discussion, questions, comments, and we may have time for about probably 1 or 2 questions or comments per presenter. And I invite you guys, to unmute after the tip has been given, be willing to participate and ask questions. What we have found works best is if you do have a question, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature. And that way I can know who's asking the questions and I can get to you and call on you. So you guys can go ahead and look for that and find that little feature so you'll be ready. And today we've got Richard Reimer presenting, Kriston Sellier, Billy Mitchell, Yanatori Aspriki, and Ryan Williams. So thank you guys for being willing to share your expertise with us today. And I would invite you guys to subscribe to the SowGrow Marketing Council podcast. And we also have a YouTube channel. I put the links in the chat for that, but you can go to SowGrowPR.com. And that's SowGrowPR.com and find everything under the Marketing Council tab and subscribe to all of our things there as well. And also be sure to sign up for our next meeting. We meet the third Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. Eastern. So our next one is November 18th. And, be sure if you want to present a tip at our meeting, you can go to SowGrowPR.com/submit. And that's how we choose our presenters to present at the meetings. So I'm so excited to hear from our guests today. And our first one, we are going to turn over to Richard Reimer. Richard, will you kick us off today?
Great. Thanks, Stephanie. My name is Richard Reimer. I'm an IP lawyer with Offit Kurman. And today I'm going to talk about why your client mistakenly thinks that they own their company name. So often marketers are given an assignment by a company, hey, help grow my company, and they hand over all of these different materials that exist in the past, maybe the name of a company, the name of products, services, etc. And they think that they have ownership over these names. And this is a gotcha that I hope marketers at least ask the question about clients early on. The number one gotcha, and one that everyone trips over all the time, is the company owns a registration with the Secretary of State. It's a really common step when you're starting a company to go to the Secretary of State and to organize your LLC or incorporate your corporation or do any of a number of things that are very legalistic and very important. I don't mean to diminish the necessary step that entails, but it does not give you any rights to use that name. I like to think of it as that's a relationship between you and the government. Brand rights or trademark rights are a relationship between you and consumers or the public. So getting a Secretary of State's blessing, and we could talk for hours at each one of these, but just know that gives you no rights. Number two, they own the domain name. So if your client comes to you with acme.com and thinks they have the absolute right to use Acme over and over again, they don't. Again, it's a simple thing that people mistaken all the time, but it might give you some limited rights, but certainly doesn't give you exclusive rights. Number three, your client's done some sort of a search, Google, USPTO, et cetera, and they didn't find an exact match. That's kind of a red siren, a red light flashing right there. Exact matches are not the test, and clients think that a very quick search, finding no exact match gives them rights. It doesn't. Ford, this is probably the one that's closest to actually being a truism, but they've been using their name for years and there hasn't been any problem. That might be fine if they continue to do the same thing. That is, they stay small, they stay in their industry, they geographically don't grow, they don't grow in any way. But as soon as they grow, they've sort of encroached a new territory and they've not been, they're a new user in that place. So having a long period of continual use isn't necessarily a sign that you got rights. And finally, logo ownership. I talk to creatives all the time about make sure that your client actually owns the copyright and the logo that you create for them if you're that type of creative. Um, and that gives them some copyright. But a lot of people think it also gives them trademark rights, and it doesn't. And it's a fine line and one that only nerds like me really want to know or need to know. But it's something I want to make sure your clients don't trip over. So, five very quick tips about things your clients might want to watch out for, making sure that they really do, in fact, own their names.
It's great. Thank you, Richard. And sometimes it seems like, oh, does this really happen in real life? But we have a client right now that is running into this. There's a company that's local that's using the same tagline. Their colors are almost exactly the same, and the logo is the exact same shape. And it's like, what do you do if you don't have all of that stuff nailed down and someone like Richard who's prepared all of those things. So questions, thoughts for Richard? Have you guys run into this? You guys have clients that you feel like have run into this as well?
I don't want to raise my hand.
Cordelia?
Sorry, I don't know if I'm raising my hand correctly. I know there's a way to do it electronically, but I think I failed.
I,
Um,
I think it's under the React.
okay. Um, so a lot of times people shorten their company names for their socials. So like you might own SowGrow Marketing Council, but you might not own SowGrow. Because we're finding in the valuation space that sometimes people don't even own like the accounts themselves. Like they had an assistant set up their Instagram account and that person owns their Instagram account. And so when they go to sell the company and the person's like, well, this is my Instagram account or whatever, Amazon account, it can happen with any of those things. But I'm curious, Richard, if you've encountered that where people use a sort of version of their name on social media and then that also becomes an ownership issue.
Cordelia, thanks for the question. By the way, to own up, I actually had a presentation that I couldn't figure out how to present, so I too am in the technically challenged category.
It happens to all of us, even
Exactly,
tech
so I
people.
feel you. But yeah, there are lots, especially in the digital world we live in now. And Cordelia, I think you might, as a very young child, remember the age before the internet. That age was much easier to look at my rules I have to live by and try to figure out what's what. But now everyone is everywhere all the time. And you do need to be careful about exactly how are you differentiating yourself in different places. And so to give your SoGrow example, you might want to try to have multiple versions of domain names, of user profiles and other sorts of names available. But also you need to be sort of realistic about what you can and can't own. There's probably 15 versions we could think of that SowGrow could get, but do they really need all 15 of them? Let's talk about the one or two most important ones and make sure that the people who are potentially hitting numbers five, six, and seven aren't the same industry or other. Because if SowGrow was a gardening store or something, we wouldn't care. They could go on and do that. So there is some more analysis to be done, but at some point you need to sort of understand where is it going to cause confusion and where is it not going to cause confusion. That sort of from a legal perspective and really from a marketing perspective should be the golden rule.
Right. Kriston, I saw your hand up and then I'll let you do your tip. We'll move on to let you do your tip. Sorry, guys, we're gonna have to limit questions a little bit just to make sure we get it in. But yeah, Kriston, you wanna
So,
do your
Richard, what's the first step if you have a client you're concerned that, hey, I'm not sure if this is a name that we can use or a logo that we own? What's the first step?
The first step is always a search, Kristen. Thanks for the question. Obviously, you can do, or anyone can do searches on the internet. Just do a Google search to start it off with, because there's a lot of things you could knock off pretty quickly and not need to get me engaged. But if you see something that's a little confusing or something that you don't really know how to search something, I have some tools that I use that it's not just my experience, but my experience plus my tools together give me some further reach than you might have. Also, another got you, a marketer giving legal advice to a client might open that client up to risk that they're not open up to if a lawyer gives them the same advice. So even if you have somehow I don't know, you had a JD that you parked or something, and you're no longer a registered lawyer, but you've done that in the past, you could be exposing your client to risk by giving them news in a non confidential way. So be careful about how you are passing on search information.
And Billy, I saw your hand go up. Hang on to that question. If we have time at the end, we'll circle back to Richard on that. All right, Kriston, you want to introduce yourself and share your tip?
Hello, I'm Kriston Sellier, founder of Ideate. And let's be honest, the user persona is dead. Meet 34-year-old Karen from Kansas City doesn't tell us anything useful anymore. So the world isn't moving in nice little buckets of Gen Z or affluent professionals. What binds people together now is shared beliefs, wanting balance, fairness, freedom, wellness, or belonging. And our audiences are a community of thought, not checkboxes of traits. I was just at the AIGA conference in Los Angeles, and they were presenting a NASA rebranding. And in that particular presentation, they literally said user personas are dead. What they are using is thinking styles. And they actually created thinking styles for their top four different types of segments that they were reaching. In our brand, what we have been using is perceptions, wants, needs, beliefs, and values. And what we found is that it's a much greater connection, and brand loyalty is measurably more when values and beliefs are connected with their customers. So it's really not anti-data. I'm 100% data. That's what we live and breathe is research, but it's pro-human. So it's putting empathy first over data. And when brands can connect with people on an emotional level, they have a stickiness that happens versus a transaction. Now you're building a relationship. So when you connect to what matters, values and belonging and trust, you don't just win attention, you learn advocacy. And the future of marketing isn't persona driven, it's perception driven. And I've got some great little charts here that show how this impacts engagement, conversion, customer loyalty, and ROI, and then also customer lifetime value. So great data that supports all of these points, and I'm hoping that this information is helpful to all of you marketers in terms of how we are reaching our audiences, particularly you, Mona, for your students that you're working with. I thought that might be helpful.
Absolutely,
I
Kriston.
was typing away furiously.
I feel the same way about the profiles. I never was able to make them work. It always just felt so just didn't connect. Like I just felt like it was just kind of this thing that didn't really actually help. Dan, you had a thought or question? And then we'll
I
jump
just
to
want to say,
Monica.
yeah, I just want to say thank you. Like, there's so many components of business that are spewed universally, and then there's a big chunk of people like, wait, what? That does not pertain to me. And our space has always been like that. Once we started reacting to what the market wanted instead of trying to take what we had and fit it in the market, all that did was create a list of clients that if I showed them to a standard marketer would be like, this is all over the place. What are you doing? There's no ICP here. Sorry, the market wants this and we gave it to them. So I love that you brought this up and that there is another way to think about how we're trying to reach people.
So
Yeah,
good.
and you know that NASA project, there were 1,100 sites that they brought together. And so you talk about an organization that has a huge reach. And it was, it was very interesting that, we're working, at least for me, I work with smaller brands, mid-market, not working with NASA. But the same thinking can be brought down to small mid-market companies to help them grow. So that's what I got so excited about to hear that.
It's so good. Monica.
Yeah, I think what you're presenting and what sort of people are starting to realize is something that creatives have tried to prioritize in spite of the data obsession, in spite of ICPs and user personas, and sort of bring always that dimension to the content that we create and that we produce for marketing campaigns. And I think that goes back what Billy said earlier, creatives are strategic. And I think that that's actually where we have been at the forefront, but it's never been recognized as such. So it's very encouraging and exciting to hear that the mainstream is starting to turn that way. I think, storytelling, all of these things that are becoming more, you see so many more requests for storytellers and branding, weaving your brand into this or that. And it's all because you want a person-based approach. You want these beliefs, these values that you were talking about. Those are at the forefront. That is what people that's what builds that stickiness, like you said, and that loyalty. When I ask my clients when we do sort of like the first the first discovery calls and I ask them, think of what your favorite brand is. Don't tell me what it is. Tell me what it is. Like think to it yourself first. What is your favorite brand? Why do you like them so much? How do you feel whenever you use their products? Why is it that when you finish or you want to renew your subscription or you need to buy more, why do you keep doing that? And I think that that really gets at the root of who they are as people and why they keep sticking to, Adidas versus Nike. And these are the big ones. And those are starting to shift as well. But I think working with smaller brands too, like you do, Kristen, I think is really exciting because they're so much closer to their people. And I find it more fun because they've sort of known this for a long time. They just maybe don't know how to put it into action, and they need people like us to help them get there and help put these ideas and these thoughts into action. But I think that that's always been for me the defining factor and the big difference between, say, working for a corporate client versus a small shop owner that's selling things out of their garage, but they know exactly who they're selling to and why.
Right. That's so true. So true. Thank you guys. Great tip, Kristen. We love it. Are you gonna have a blog post about this? Is there a blog post coming? Send us a link when you post it.
There totally is.
I knew. I knew. I want to see the full post. All right, Billy, please introduce yourself and share your tip, and then we'll go to Yana Tori. Oh, you're on mute.
All right. I'm Billy Mitchell with STOUT Creative in Atlanta. We're a marketing agency that focuses primarily on business to business. One of the things, and we've been in business for 40 years. So some of the things I might talk about, I think they're evergreen, and I think they worked back 40 years ago and they work today. There's more tools to do what I'm going to talk about. But all of us that have some type of an agency or an independent service, we all deal with business development and new business. And it's kind of an awkward point to where you may have someone that reaches out to you, or proactively you reached out to them, and somehow you've scheduled the intro call. And that intro call is a chance for everybody to kind of try to impress each other a little bit. You're showing your deck. You may have set it up the call with a few questions in advance, but you want to hear more about them. They want to learn a little bit about you, but it always comes down to that old expression of that first meeting is the goal of it is to get the second meeting. And one of the things that we came up with years ago, and we've done all types of different versions of it, and I'm really curious from this group if you're using something similar, and if so, maybe that could come up in the questions or the discussion. But there's an expression in the business with agencies that you always want to start with strategy. And if you can somehow get into discussions on strategy as a creative resource, first of all, you're talking on a different level. You're talking about what the strategy and tactics are before you get into drilling in on any kind of creative execution, which is sort of pretentious or naive to try to recommend creative solutions before you're all on the same page related to strategy. Well, the big next steps that we found that kind of work is to suggest a workshop. And that workshop can be formatted in all types of different ways. It can be structured as a series of virtual meetings or all done just through exchanges of surveys, reviews, and but the face-to-face is what we found is the best way to do a workshop. And I was going to talk through sort of what we've arrived at, and it fits our model of growth in the future for us is going to be through partnerships. So it's interesting to see services like Ryan's service, where he's focused on SEO. It's one of the things that he does. He obviously does other things. with uh, gosh, his name's not up here anymore. Uh, Brian Jungles, coolest name on the call, I think. But but anyway, Brian being focused on direct mail. I mean, that's just fascinating to me because that's such an overlooked part of a marketing mix. And so that's an example to where if we were talking to a prospect, one of the things I might suggest is as a next step is we'd love to schedule because I'll always ask if they can share their marketing plan, if they can share their sales plan, and 90% of the time they're not confident with it. They don't have it fully baked. There's not internal agreement on it. And we may be talking to only one decision maker within that company on this call. And we know there's more involved if we're going to land the account. And so the big bridge builder that we have found is to suggest a deep dive workshop, and it can go by many names. What we've kind of arrived at that works best is a growth strategy workshop. We have a kind of a generic name for it, and aligning strategy, story, and systems for scalable growth. So it's got all types of, and this is just a generic framework, but it's the pre-workshop phase is one of the most interesting things, and we will sort of play hard to get here because we can dictate what the price is. We can offer this type of thing for free, which doesn't really convey any value. And we have found that it's very often well received to have this priced at anywhere from $2,500 to up to $10,000, depending on how intensive it is. But you can focus on one element. You can focus on their marketing, on their strategy, on their marketing and sales alignment, on their CRM, on their SEO, on their there's all types of ways to break it apart. But we have found that it's best to stay general. And one of the requirements is that we have at least one contact within the company with some authority, whether it's the C-suite, their head of sales, and their head of marketing, that agree to respond to a survey. And we have a survey that we've built that I can share it later if with anyone that's interested. But it allows us to take a chance and take advantage of our fresh perspective. And so we will send this survey out. We use a Google Sheets for the survey, and it's somewhat anonymous. They don't see each other's answers. So immediately we get a chance to see their answers and identify where there's disparity on their opinions of how well aligned their marketing is with sales, how clear their brand messaging is, how good they are with their competitive landscape analysis, how they measure success. And it always comes back with different types of answers. So we not only have their unique perspectives when we're planning for the workshop, it's almost like a psychiatrist that gets a chance to interview, or a marriage counselor that interviews the husband and wife separately. And so then you get them together on the couch, and you're sort of the expert because, but anyway, that's what has worked for us. But we take advantage of our fresh perspective. We celebrate it because that's a good thing.
That's awesome.
And we don't try to do this as a lost leader to where we always suggest that what we have given them is a perfect RFP, because we have partners that, and along with us, that could implement the solutions. But we focus on in the deep dive, we have a premise that we're going to ask good questions on the front end with the survey. Those good questions lead to great ideas and actionable insights, because what we want to deliver is a report. That's where the real value comes in for us and the client in this deep dive, whether it's done in person over 6 hours on a special day at an away site to get them away from their offices, or if it's done virtually. However it's done, that type of thing can be flexed, but it allows us to bring in strategic partners. We may have a partner that's an expert. Like, for example, I'm a big advocate of including print in a marketing plan. And that's the type of thing where we have a printing company, or we may have someone like Brian that's going to talk about, we're going to talk about print, but we're also going to talk about how we can include direct mail in their marketing automation mix. It can be three of a 6 touch point tactic or whatever, to where it's going to be 3 emails and 3 direct mail or whatever. All those kind of tactical things get fleshed out in whiteboard sessions during this live deep dive session. Where the real value comes is the third engagement with this prospect, and that's the report, because the report has all the value and it focuses on the first 90 days. So it's got plenty of implementation throughout the report, but then it also has an extension to the following 9 months.
That's awesome, Billy. I'm going to stop you there. So maybe you can send us some of your content via email, and let's open it up for questions because we're going to make sure we have time for everybody to share their tips today. But that's such a good idea. I love your idea. So thoughts and questions for Billy. Has anybody tried this? Has anybody had success with this? You guys can raise your hand in the feature in Zoom. It's under the React button if anybody has any thoughts and questions. It's such a good idea.
Kriston, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, I think that you're sending the questionnaire out and having them fill it out so they don't see each other's answers is brilliant. Love that.
Yeah, absolutely. I see Mona, you raised your hand as well.
Yes, I love the tip. I have a question about how it's implemented. So you send the questionnaire out to everybody, but they're sort of self-assessing. And to that extent, it could be biased. So is there anything woven into the process where there's someone sort of independent looking in on it and saying, well, actually, this is what I see it as?
It's a great question. It's not quite that deep because the bias is almost what we're wanting to tap into. And it could be that the marketing person thinks, I mean, the salesperson thinks the marketing sucks. I mean, that's all kind of cliche type things, but the leads are weak, that we need better marketing, or we're heroes. We do all the sales without marketing. That's the fluffy stuff. We don't really, there's all types of, you want to find out the, what's the word? The discord within the company is almost a good thing to identify, because that's what's holding them back. I mean, if they're in flow and everything's working smoothly, they don't need you, and you may not have much new to offer to them. Everything's working fine. These things almost don't happen unless they already realize there's gaps, and so
that makes sense. Awesome. Thank you, Billy. We'd love to try this. I think it sounds like a great strategy. All right, Yana Tori, you are up next. Please introduce yourself and share your tip.
Sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Yana Tori. I'm a deliverability specialist and the co-founder of Review My Emails. So I help brands fix what's really wrong with their email results. So not the subject lines, the colors, but all the invisible stuff. So spam filters, block lists, and all the signals that the mailbox providers actually care about. I know that most marketers were never taught this side of email because when we go to school or university and take some classes, we're going to learn about design, copy, connecting with people, call to actions, but not the technical trust layer that's going to decide if we're going to land in the inbox, the promotions tab, or the spam folder. So the news of the month in email is that Gmail is quietly reshaping how the promotion tab works, right? So as marketers, we always want to land in the inbox, but the promotions tab and all of the update tabs is considered the inbox. If you're not in spam or junk, it's still considered the inbox. Now, the scary part is that the promotions tab is not going to be offered to be sorted by date only. It's not going to be sorted by relevance as well. So that means that all those times that we've checked over the years, Monday morning at 10 a.m., that's not going to work as much anymore, because if the user has their inbox sorted by relevancy instead of recency, then if they're not engaging with your emails, they're not going to be seeing them at all. So the person who's making this decision at the end of the day is how people are engaging with your emails and Google itself, because what they're looking for is to make sure that the emails that people are getting are interesting, valuable to the recipient, not to you and your business, right? So this is going to mean that engagement, reputation, and all the trust signals are going to be way more important than anything else we ever cared about, like an amazing subject line or like an amazing pre-header text. Oh, sorry, there's noise, of course, when I start talking. Anyway, so this is going to matter because as marketers, we sometimes think that the promotions tab is like a junk drawer, but the way people think about the promotions tab is I'm now looking to read something that might not be an email I have to answer back. So the mindset is different, and it tends to convert a lot better when they've got that tab open in their, or like that tab set up in their inbox. So the hard truth here is that most senders don't really understand how email works, and we're always focusing on better subject lines, sending more emails, growing our lists. But now a bigger list might be the actual issue. The more contacts you've got in your list, the less likely that all of them care about that one email. So the way to help fix this is to make sure that we've got better segments, that we really understand who's on our list, where they came from, and what they actually wanted when they gave you the email, and ensure that you're sending them that information back. So before anybody gets angry, we all agree that when it comes to social media, that's exactly how it works. You share something, and if the algorithm realizes that other people care about it, more people see it. Emails was the same way, but now it's really in all of our faces that what they care about is ensuring that people are getting emails that people actually want to receive. I mean, we all open our inboxes and get annoyed at the 200 emails we got from Walmart last week. Well, let's not go to work and do the exact same thing. So keep in mind as well, the email is the only channel where you own the relationship with the people. So it's not an algorithm deciding if you're going to get the email or if you're going to see the post. It's you. You get to decide who gets the message, and you can send them the best messages ever. And that's it.
That's so good. All right, we'll take one question for Yana Tori. Thoughts and questions about email. It touches pretty much everything we all do in marketing. Ryan.
So what signals of engagement do you find to be most important to signal that these are, valid emails? What's
Um, the most important signals to these mailboxes are actually the negative signals. So people who are reporting emails as spam, people who are ignoring you is going to be a lot stronger for the inbox than you not opening every single email because you signed up to a newsletter that sends one a day. So that would be the first thing to check, all the negative things. If people haven't engaged in 2, 3 months, 6 months, depending on how many times you send emails. And then after that, I don't know if you guys know this, but open rates and click rates have never been precise, just the way the technologies work since the beginning of times, but it is something to look at. So you check open rates over time, but the best metric you can have is click rates with a UTM, because then you can track on the Google side if it's all the spam filter opening in California or actual people getting on the website.
right? Thank you.
Awesome.
Anytime.
Very cool. All right. I am going to share a tip that I prepared today in something that we are knee deep in, but my name is Stephanie Richards. My company is SowGrow Public Relations, and we are focusing on visibility in the business to business space. So one of the things that is completely changing the world in terms of public relations is AIO and GEO. And so we're going to talk about what that is, and we're going to talk about how you guys can incorporate this into the marketing for your businesses and your clients. So my tip today is to be flexible with AIO and GEO. And first of all, what is AIO? And it's also called GEO, and it's got all these other different names. So what we're talking about is when somebody is searching on an AI engine, they're searching for an answer in something, and coming up in those answers is what we're talking about. It's AIO. It's artificial intelligence optimization. Some people are calling it generative engine optimization. And it's so new, and this is happening so fast that people are trying to catch up and figure out what is even going on, that we don't even know what to call it. Some other fun names are artificial intelligence search optimization, which is AISO, which is actually the one I like, and I don't think that's going to win, but that's the one I like. It's AI enhanced optimization. It's large language model optimization. It's answer engine optimization. So all of these terms are being thrown around, but basically what's happening is companies are finding out that if they are not prepared to be a source for these AI engines as they're pulling data and content, they're invisible when these answers come up, and they're not cited in them. They're not included. And, it's basically like what happened in search engine optimization at the beginning, where if you didn't play the SEO game, you didn't show up in search results. That's happening all over again. And people are switching from searching the traditional way with Google with the blue links. And now everybody's trying to search on these AI engines, and the results are coming up. They're giving them the answer right there, and they're not clicking onto people's websites. So if you are not included in that snippet of information, a lot of times you are just completely invisible to the users that are searching for information and potentially searching for what you offer, right? So this is completely changing the search world. And so my tip today is to be flexible with this, just like you had to be flexible with SEO at the beginning, where everything just changes so quickly as these engines figure out the algorithms, they figure out, okay, people are gaming the system, so now we have to change it again. The same thing is happening in these AI searches, whereas people are figuring out, okay, they're pulling from Reddit, so everybody needs to go jump on Reddit, or they're pulling from Wikipedia, everybody needs to go jump on Wikipedia. And so the search engines or the AI engines are like, oh well, we have enough information that we're actually not even pulling from those anymore. And so all that to say, to show up in these engines, you need to have a really solid visibility strategy. And that's a lot of where public relations comes in. It's the traditional stuff in PR. It's showing up in the media outlets. It's having thought leadership content in multiple places that are credible. It's having research out there. There's all these different areas where you're putting out good content, good data, and you have to keep a pulse on what's going on. How much of a role is Reddit playing? How much of a role is Wikipedia playing? Is it worth the investment? Is that going to shift? So the steady things that you need to keep track of in terms of like the basics of just building trust and authority and credibility and good content, that will stay the same. Be flexible with the things like which things are pulling from, like Reddit and that sort of thing. So, thoughts and questions about AIO, GEO, AISO, all these, whatever you want to call it. Any thoughts and questions? And then Ryan, we'll jump to you for your tip if you still want to present one today. April.
Hello, hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi. Yes, sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, so yeah, I just wanted to jump in and mention something about what's going on with that, because originally my understanding is that all of these kind of like AI models were scraping places like Reddit, and that's where they were getting most of their results. And Reddit was saying, well, we're going to start charging crawlers because they're leveraging our data. And then this week, I don't know if you guys heard, like Google decided, it's like, well, what we're going to do is like change how we present results. So instead of like having like, in your when you search, you only like land on 10 pages of the old school 100 pages that we used to have before. And Reddit noticed that immediately cut, kind of like how many landing results they were getting, like by massive percentage. So much so that they thought it was something regarding the AI models, but it was actually how Google was presenting the results now since they made the switch. And this just happened within the last week, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that things are kind of like, there's a lot of like whiplash, because this is kind of like happening back and forth this all happening within, I want to say, less than 3 weeks. And that it's affecting everybody. It's affecting, how you come up on the results differently at different instances. And also, kind of like, how are you supposed to like come up with like an advertising strategy for like, if you're doing Google Ads, or if you're a startup, or versus if you're like a B2B or B2C, like it and it feels like a war between these giants, and everybody else is getting affected by it. And I was wondering if anybody here in the group has noticed like this and been affected in such way, or what are you guys are thinking in terms of strategies? Because I'm getting whiplash.
Yeah, and that I think that it's going to be the way that it is, because like right now news releases are working. News releases haven't worked in terms of really making a huge impact probably since the early SEO days, and they're coming back. I think it's going to be for a short time. So I think those basics need to be in place. The good content, the authority and credibility, building all of that. The other stuff, I think, is just going to shift and change, and we just kind of have to weigh, as like part of the strategy, but maybe not the whole strategy. So, all right, Monica, we're going to do a quick response from you, and then Ryan will jump to you for a tip before we wrap up.
Yeah, just responding to what April was saying, that I'm currently working with a client, and the biggest gap that I identified in their marketing engine is sort of this lack of authority and credibility in digital spaces. And this is absolutely sort of sending all kinds of mixed messages. Although, like you said, the giants are duking it out, and we're just trying to figure out where we need to go and not get caught in the crossfire. So I think for me, back to what Stephanie was saying, it's the type of, you want solid evergreen content that you can repurpose ad nauseum because you're going to have to. I think that's part of that flexibility that Stephanie's talking about also, not just from a PR standpoint, which is crucial right now, I agree, but also from the type of content you leave on your website, podcast appearances and LinkedIn and everything, creating an ecosystem where you are showing up in multiple spaces with a common thread and a common story that builds that authenticity and that credibility. And beyond that, just reap, hopefully, you sow and then you reap what you sow after. But I don't think there's a one size fits all other than quality matters a lot more, I think
100%.
now.
I think you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly right. The ecosystem is a good way you have to build your ecosystem with good content. So 100%. All right, Ryan, going to jump to you. So Ryan, we've got a few minutes left, but go ahead and present your tip. And just so you guys know, I do have a timer on. So if you guys kind of see me start to jump in, then, I'll start to wave at you. All right. So Ryan, introduce yourself, share your tip if you're.
Hey, Ryan from WebSuasion, focused on SEO research and implementation. And kind of to address what Stephanie was talking about in April, I'll give you my perspective on this. Still, if you're going to show up in AI, you have to first show up in search results because Bing and Google are still 60 to 70% of the what most, like certainly ChatGPT, Claude, and to some extent Perplexity, even though they have their own search engine, essentially they are still using Google and Bing results. So it depends on the context of your search. Is it informational? Is it brand oriented? Is it like comparing for a certain trade, like who's the best solution for this? Those are all going to kind of invoke different things from the agents. So one of the things I've noticed a lot is, for instance, if somebody's comparing brands for your client, and you want your client to show up at the top, you definitely want to make sure that any of the third-party review sites that they're prominent on, like that could be Clutch.io, if it's more of a marketing or web development kind of thing, Good Firms, things like that. But those are very, very important. But also, they have to have a presence in the first 10 results for their primary pillar topics, or they're just not going to show up as a comparison. Likewise, I think they are looking to PR currently for the news, like any of the typical PR news related items. That's going to be something that comes in. One of the things we're all going to notice though is we're going to have less and less traffic for our clients, but they're still going to get possibly more leads. So the trick becomes, how do we attribute the work that we're doing in content to these leads that are coming in directly from a ChatGPT result that gives the phone number and address and everything. So and that's going to decimate pay-per-click, in my opinion, from what like April mentioned, because you're just not going to see those sponsored ads unless the LLMs start showing us ads too, or like running ads themselves essentially. But so that, and Comet was just recently released. This is the other thing I want to point out, which is or it's been out, but it's released free to the public. This is Perplexity's own browser. So that's interesting. They're making a play, to go up against Chrome and Firefox. So that's something to look at because that's using that Perplexity engine behind it, which does use Google and Bing, like I said, but it's using their own search as well. And that has produced some interesting results from some of the work that I've been doing.
So helpful, Ryan. And I think you need to shout that from the rooftops because so much of the messaging out there is SEO is dead.
Yeah.
So you need to get out there and share that because I think people are assuming that this is going to replace SEO, and it's important to know that they need to work together and work in tandem.
That's on top of it. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, guys, I love hearing from you guys, and this is such a magic meeting because I feel like just being able to have discussions about what's going on and being able to figure out all these different areas and stay up to speed on them. I so appreciate you guys bringing your tips. I appreciate you guys bringing your questions. And I promise to get you guys out of here on time today. So we are going to wrap up. But I saw one person had their hand up. So I think we have time for one quick question. Was it Brian?
Yeah, that was me. This discussion is, kind of where all my new sales business development goes. And I think I agree with everything you guys are saying. There's a lot to continue to master and roll with the punches when Google or any of these giants kind of roll out new provisions. But this is why direct mail is a tried and true channel to get an impression in front of your target audience is kind of back in vogue from like the big brands. Fortune 500 budgets are growing from the local brands like coming to me. It's the ability to target has really modernized. We've got the similar kind of data, and it's an impression, tactile experience that you can hold, et cetera. So I know we're low on, this is like, that's a 20-minute plus spiel that I can go on, but
We'll bring your tip next
consider.
month, November 18th.
Yeah,
So you guys sign up. I put
perfect.
the links in the chat. So please do subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel. That helps us so much. So we would definitely appreciate that. And also bring your marketing friends so we can have even more brilliant minds share tips and engage in the discussion next week or next month. So again, November 18th, please sign up. And if you want to present a tip at the next one, SowGrowPR.com/submit. And that's how we choose our presenters. So thank you guys so much for coming today. I appreciate you guys could be anywhere today and you guys decided to show up and we appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day and we will see you guys in November, if not before. Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening to the SowGrow Marketing Council podcast. Want to be part of our next meeting? Visit SowGrowPR.com. That's SowGrowPR.com and click on the Marketing Council tab to sign up for our next event. Until next time, keep growing.